Okay, we're going.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's live meeting. Lots of love to everyone who is joining us live. And also please do share your thoughts and feelings and stuff that you want to share with us in the chat box below. And lots of love to everyone who is joining the replay. If you have any questions or you want to share something, maybe like a topic for the next live event, then leave a comment and we will do our best to answer your questions if we can do so. And first off, let's address like very quickly, like what the hell happened last week with our live event. Like we did a global meditation to bring peace and balance to the world. And like technology was our primary enemy that we had to overcome in order to do the meditation. Like we started the live event twice somehow. The second time we managed to keep ourselves online. And after that, like after I finished the whole session, I couldn't access it on my PC. So I don't know, like I think people were still able to watch it, but I was unable to access it on my PC or phone. So here it was completely dead. Like you only had the circle rotating, and after a while it said like it's some kind of error and you couldn't access the video. So that was odd. It's still there. I managed to download it and like re-upload it as like a video, so you can still do the meditation. And I've also kind of did like a separate meditation which kind of has the same theme. I uploaded that like last Sunday if you want to do that. It's not a group meditation, but you can do it alone, and it's really good and transformative. Yeah, like, and also wanted to address our Patreon community. We just started it in March, so this is like the second week that we're up and running. And yeah, like if you're interested, it's a very cool way of connecting more directly with like-minded people. Our community is still small there on Patreon, but that's also cool because like you have more opportunity to connect more directly with people, to get to know each other more directly. Next week, we're going to have a type of group meeting for which we're going to do like exercises on how to can become a clearer channel, how to receive more inspiration and guidance in a conscious way. And in the last week's live event on Patreon, I want to do a type of channeling session. So people live can ask questions from my guides and I will bring them through to answer your questions. So we will see how that will unfold. Okay, so I think we addressed everything. Like, hello, higher vibrations. Thank you for joining us. And also for the technical assistance this time again. So how have you been? And is there anything interesting on your end that you wish to share?
I would like to, if you don't mind, to kind of advertise. It's not, I don't know if that's the right word, but let people know that we're still doing our Zoom meetings on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. Athens, and 4 a.m. Western Australia time. Anyone who would like to join that, it's free of charge and it's not recorded or aired. It's just a fun, cool gathering of people who are like-minded and in this awakening journey. I will post a link in my channel too, by the way.
Yeah, like after we have finished, you can post a comment. I will pin that with your channel link and all this stuff so people can find it more easily.
Perfect.
Let's see how it goes next time too. Yeah, like, and for today's topic, we have chosen how to find a center of your power, or how to be grounded basically, and how to find yourself in this whole chaos that is unfolding right now. And yeah, like I think I will do like a short synopsis of like what I want to talk about and see how we expand on that. And basically to start off, like everything in our society and all the impulses that we receive are there to like drag you out of your center, to be as unbalanced as possible. Yeah, like everything in the media, like the programming that we have received throughout our lives. And basically everyone is like reflecting that to you, to drag you out of your center. And it's a very difficult thing to maintain, especially now. Although I think we have done a great job of like getting so far. Because yeah, like the past 2 years have not been very easy on us. Like I don't think it was easy on anyone, but especially for people who are awake and aware and know how things work and are like very sensitive to stuff, it was like super hard for us, I think. So we were hammered very much so because we have also our own stuff to work on. And all of a sudden we were like flooded from the collective with all the people who are experiencing anxiety attacks and are panicking for all types of reasons. And we also had to deal with that too, because like we're processing all that together. So for us, it's very difficult. I wouldn't say like very difficult, like we can achieve that state, define your center, to be centered in your seat of power, as some call it. But yeah, like it takes daily practice too. Like you have to be very self-aware of yourself. Like what are you going through each moment to really know yourself, to know thyself, as you always hear it from everywhere. And it basically comes down to your how you manage your empathic abilities, how you manage your own energies. Because like as we have talked about so many times, like we're like energetic sponges, just as like little children or babies are like super sensitive to all the stuff that is happening around them. So if the parents are experiencing something, then you bet that the child is going to go through it. She or he is going to absorb it, even though they have no clue what it is. And it's going to have an effect on their physical health as too. So, and we're pretty much the same way too. So I think that's also why it was stated, how is it in the Bible that in order to go to the heavenly realms or to reach heaven, you have to become like a child or something similar? I don't remember the exact quote.
I don't either, but I do remember the reference.
Yeah, something similar to that. Yeah. And yeah, we also have to be like very aware of what is going on inside of us to manage our own energies, because like we're absorbing so much, and you kind of have to like be able to like sift through like, okay, like this stuff is mine, and that stuff that is coming in is not mine, and I don't want it. Because like we're absorbing so much from all the people around us, and also from the collective. Like I also noticed, especially in the last year, like whenever something new or big is happening that is very scary, then all the collective gets very agitated. And even though I don't want to feel it and it's not mine, I still do feel it to a certain extent, especially when I try to go to sleep. Like, especially in the past 2 moon cycles, I've really felt that, like this agitation, and I was unable to sleep because for some reason my heart was racing, but I was completely fine, but I was still getting those energies, even though I do my best to like shield myself from it. But I guess we're still here and we are receiving that too. So is there anything you want to reference to that or share your thoughts on that, high vibrations?
Yeah, thank you. I would kind of like to expound on some of the stuff that you'd already said. For me, in the beginning of this experience, I mean, like all of us have different, most of us, Guardian's example of awakening is this like, bam, this big thing. But for me, it was like, there were steps, like there's all these different awakenings that have happened starting when I was 4, and so, I don't envy Guardians or anyone else who has an awakening that way. That sounds very shocking.
Drastic.
Yes. And for me, in my experience, at an earlier age, but around my teens, I kind of decided to try to like turn it off and block it out. And I was pretty effective in that for the most part, except I never heard the word empath before. I didn't know what I was going through exactly. I knew what astral travel was, but they didn't call it that back then. It was out of body experiences. And you didn't tell anybody about it though, because they'd lock you up. But like the biggest thing that was difficult for me to understand was the anxiety stuff, like you were talking about, that we are having a lot of right now. And I thought I had a serious anxiety disorder, and I was really considering some heavy medication, and until I realized what I was feeling was other people. I was feeling that agitation and that fear and that panic, and it wasn't just one other person. I was feeling a group of people. And to understand that was the first step for me, just like you were saying, to know where it's coming from, to know thyself. And like there's not I don't feel like, for me anyway, there wasn't like a magical recipe to that. It was simply deciphering it slowly over time and being like, okay, is there any reason for me to be feeling like this right now? And to not feed into, it's a warning. Like that was something else I used to do. Impending doom, prepare for the end of something bad or whatever. And I was just feeling somebody upset because they got a bill in the mail. You know what I mean? Like, and so with that experience.
Okay, like Fritzy was trying to dismantle my PC.
Oh.
But please do continue.
Hi, Fritzy. So that was the beginning for me to really kind of make, hey, it's 12/12, and make those steps of like, okay, is that mine? Is that not mine? And now I've come to this point where, for the most part, because after working on it for so long, when I'm hit upside the head with something random like that, I know automatically it's not me. Most often these days, my emotional experience is pretty, like I have ups and downs, but they're gradual ups and downs. They're not like spikes. And when a spike comes, that's not me. And knowing that, just that knowledge is so empowering, because at that point I can separate myself from it, and also not trying to figure out what the big message is. Like that was a couple of years of sleepless nights I didn't have to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just like this, like you were saying too, I was just talking about this last night. I don't know how much the astral or astrology and like moon phases really do have to do exactly with our experience, except who knows, it's the chicken before the egg kind of concept. We all as a collective have agreed on those moments. That's a moment where something is profoundly open to us. We've decided that as a group. And so, yeah, those moments are significant for those reasons, so it's helpful to know when the moon phase is going to happen, and those planetary alignment kind of things. But I'm rambling now. But yeah, that was mostly the biggest thing, was being able to decipher what is mine and what is not. And from that, you can kind of figure out who you are.
Yeah, like you ever had that experience that, I think it was like last year, I went down shopping for basic groceries, and while I was like standing in line to pay for my stuff, I get this like, I wouldn't say like impending doom, but I never felt that before. Like there's something really bad is going to happen. Like, I know like someone is going to die or something horrible is going to happen. And it wasn't clear to me, like, did that already happen there?
Right.
Is it going to happen now? And I also got the sensation that it is going to happen, but not here, but somewhere else, which is very similar to where I am right now. So I still don't know what was that about, but I paid quickly for my stuff and got out of there, right, just to be safe. Right. Yeah, like I never sensed that, but it was like very alarming to a certain extent. Have you ever had those stuff before? Yeah. Maybe,
especially in shopping experiences, it's amazing how many people, like I would say the vast majority of people in stores, and not just now, but like for years and years, the vast majority of the people that are in the store are worried about the fact that they're spending money. And as a result, they're in this high stress state of like, I'm going to be in trouble, or something bad's going to happen, or there's this, and like having so many people in the store having that same experience at the same time makes it feel like this impending doom concept, because it's like exaggerates itself and it builds on itself, right? Like it's monster. And like, particularly, for years and years, I tend to get all my groceries for the month, the beginning of December, and try to avoid going back for the rest of December, just because Christmas people are like,
crazy.
Oh, yeah, like it's not fun, and they're angry and upset and scared, and it just, I understand the shielding concept, but when there's so much of it and it's so strong, it definitely still makes it through, and it sticks to me, like you said, like that sponge concept.
Yeah.
I've also had that other thing, like you said too, where you go to a place and that spot had something, like there's something that needs to be healed about the land there. And a lot of times there's energy still lingering. And, sometimes I'll find myself needing to go back, like that cave we talked about a couple of
Mhm.
months back. There was this space that needed to be healed. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I didn't want to go back because it was so unpleasant of an experience. But at the same time, it was calling and asking for help. And I waited until I was aligned in a good space and I felt like I had recharged myself enough and things aligned perfectly before I went back, rather than going back hastily. And because that doesn't help anybody. That's just going to hurt yourself and make, what are you going to do for that spot? You're not going to be able to heal it very good, right? So
Yeah, like I also made these realizations very early on. Like, okay, like I know that I have these challenges that I have to overcome. Like, just as you said, like there is something bad there and you have to clear it.
yeah,
And you have all these options on how to meet it. And like some of the options are like you immerse yourself in that darkness and you enter in a very low spot or a very disadvantageous
right,
perspective into that whole situation. And I kind of realized, like, why am I doing a disservice to myself? Like,
yeah,
why don't I wait, or why don't I like align stuff so that empowers me when I do that thing? Like also I also realize, like, when something very scary happens, maybe during the night, and you have to clear the room and all that stuff. I did it for quite some time, just laying still there in the bed, and I realized like it's much more effective if you like get up, like turn on all the lights, like
right,
sit down, like clear yourself a bit, and after that, when you're like more centered a bit, do it.
right. Create the proper intent. Like that was one of the first lessons that I learned, but it's the lesson of that has become more and more important. Intent, like whatever our intent truly is. And at that we also, it's not just an energetic and in space and what we're doing, but also it's like declaring that intent in some way. Like this is what I'm doing right now. And this is how it's going to be done. And by doing that, it's like it clears off all the other backwards options that could come around, and then it's making it clear this is what I'm doing. So for ourselves and for those who are assisting us in that space, and like for our highest good and the highest good of the area, whatever it is we're doing. And like you said, that's very disadvantageous. Like you're laying there, you're kind of scared, you're in the dark, you kind of feel
Yeah,
vulnerable.
and you also kind of feel like the same shadows are like swirling around you that were in your dream, because
Right.
you're still in that darkened state and you're still haven't woken up completely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took me a few years to do this
Yeah.
properly.
And it takes time, and then also to learn our strengths. We all have different strengths, we're all very powerful beings, and there are certain things that we're the strongest at, and it's kind of, we have those things we always have. It's just finding out what they are, and we do it naturally when we allow ourselves to, like you said, prepare your space, remove yourself from that vulnerable rather space that you're in, and empower yourself with that confidence that what you're doing, and to bring in the archangels too, like Archangel Michael, and the whole gang, like there are so many archangels out there and they're there to help us. However, because of the law of free will, they can't just show up and do what, sometimes in occasions where it's like extreme danger or whatever, but for the most part, they won't step in unless we ask, because free will. However, when we ask, they're right here. Like they're like, thank you, and that's all I wanted. And they're here to help us, and it's not that they're doing it for us, they're doing it with us. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, like you can also channel their energies from time to time. That's kind of what I've noticed, and the stuff that I'm doing, that in certain occasions I like embody those principles, like the protector sometimes, like
Mhm.
I embody those Archangel Michael traits or energies.
Yeah.
I bring it forth into this reality or something similar to that. Yeah, like Jacaranda Marie, hello. And also Jocelyn and all the others. Maricela, thank you for joining us. Jacaranda Marie addressed anxiety, like when you're experiencing these. Yeah, like I also had anxiety attacks during the past 2 years. And I bet most of us did.
Yeah.
Or at least we went through some very deep depression or good stuff like that. Yeah, like it's not always ours, or the headaches and these aches that are receiving are not always ours, because like we're kind of being overwhelmed by other people's stuff, basically what they're going through.
Yeah.
And like we're absorbing it too. And yeah, like as we have stated, like we are going through it. We have our own stuff to go through, and on top of that, we also receive other people's problems too. So yeah, it can be very, very difficult. I remember, like, I think I've seen Lee Harris like did an interview with Lori Ladd, and I think it was like a year ago. And that in that period, like Lori Ladd's channel grew very rapidly. And yeah, like she's also right now, she's guiding people, she's doing an amazing job. And she was talking very sincerely about like a year ago that she was starting to have like panic attacks or anxiety attacks. And like she was like very hesitant on like sharing that, like because like people look up to her for guidance and protection and some stability. And she didn't want to like reveal it, like, okay, like I'm facing those challenges too. Like I'm going through the same thing too, basically. And we all are, yeah. Like we seem very confident in front of the camera. or I don't know how confident we seem, but yeah, like we're going through the same stuff too.
Right. And we all go through all these things. Like, and I think that it's not just feeling the collective with that anxiety stuff. It's also an innate response to our upgrades. We're getting these DNA upgrades. That's what a lot of these ascension symptoms are coming from, are like the solar flare storms. I mean, I'm calling it a storm because we're having day after day after day of solar flares that are coming down and inspiring our DNA to upgrade, and then all this other, the light and everything that's happening at the same time is causing our body to go through certain stress. It's not dangerous stress, but it's definitely stress. For instance, the heart palpitations. When I have, I know what it is. I know what it is. I'm feeling my heart in my lower rib cage. Like I feel like it's down there. It's so intense. And my initial reaction as a physical form, someone in a physical form, is that fear of like, and like, and so that inspires that anxiety too. And then, you can't really help it. It's just, that's our human innate response to our body being in some kind of distress, as well as feeling this collective. There's this propaganda stuff that's going out right now, and everybody fear, because if they can, the farther they can pull you away from love, the more disempowered you become, and like source God is nothing but the purest love. And the opposite of love is fear. So if you can pull them closer there, you can, I don't know if you can do anything, but I think that the intention that they're going for is to try to impede or slow down or even stop awakening processes, which they can't do. Like, we're here, dude, but, and so we're feeling that though. We're feeling that panic that's being, like given out in every outlet that you can right now. Like you can't even, someone was telling me they couldn't even watch a commercial. They're watching I don't watch TV, I don't have cable, but every other commercial, I guess, is about fear right now. There's like, and they're reporting like deaths like they do like the stock market now, and like they're making this whole thing be like, be afraid. And, then you find out a couple months later that most of those reports were complete BS. Like they made it all up, but everyone was still afraid of it. And some people are still afraid of the things that they found out are not true.
Yeah. We have the same stuff here too. Like we're always like receiving this information like, okay, like war is coming, and that's like the baseline. Right. But on top of that, you have some more immediate stuff like, you're not going to have gas, you're not going to have electricity, you won't be able to buy food, and you won't have everything. And like the stores are full, we have uninterrupted service, everything. Right. And life just goes on. Right. But you can still choose to buy into that if you want to.
Right. And it's not comfortable anyway. Like it's not only is it disadvantageous to you, but it sucks. Like it sucks to believe that stuff, especially when you find out that you've been duped. You know, there were so many things that were revealed in my awakening that I had a one of my phases of awakening was the 2007 period, where a lot of information came through for me in my world, like revelation kind of stuff that I was like, I did not know what I had been doing, like what I'd been believing, and you know, like just following the mob mentality of like, well, everybody else is doing it, so they're believing it, so it must be true, kind of thing. And to find out that not only had I bought into it, but I was participating for all those years. Like I was really like mad and ashamed and all those negative things that, yeah, it's like, oh my, but you know, it's good in that we all get to find out the truth. But during that first revelation period, I think that's mostly what we're feeling, is that these people that are starting to realize they've been lied to their whole lives. Like the matrix that's in front of them, everyone had the storyline of the matrix this whole time and just didn't know it's more of a documentary than a movie, you know. And when you figure that out, it's devastating for a period of time emotionally. And I think we're feeling that more than the fear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I also think like people that are awakening now, yeah, like I think like who's listening to us or are engaging in such stuff, I think we have a much easier time like accepting those stuff and like move on to something else. But like the average people, yeah, like quotation marks, like your
The
ordinary,
muggles.
the muggles, yeah, the non-magical people, yeah, like I think they are very hesitant on like moving out of that like fear paradigm and all that brainwashing, even though if they know it in a certain level, I bet they know, like it's so obvious to everyone. But I think they're super hesitant because they have to like face what you have told, that you have to face the fact that I've been duped.
Yeah.
And I've been duped and I was like playing a part in the whole thing. And you have to be like very honest and direct, at least with yourself. And like, we are not taught that. And like, we are taught to avoid going deep within ourselves. We're taught to like avoid connecting with ourselves, like reflecting on ourselves. Just be busy with something else and like put your attention outside to something outside of you, and you're fine. Like distract your mind with stuff. Like that's basically our I don't know, like formula for dissolving everything in our lives. Like I don't know, like consume more alcohol or numb down your brain or play video games. Just distract yourself from what is actually happening inside of you, basically. And I think that's also like ties into the finding your center of power, like identifying these things that are like dragging you out of your center, that are like pushing you or like inspiring you to focus on something that is outside of you, like put your energy into something that is outside of you. And all these like fear tactics and information that is coming through that this is going to happen, like, and it's so horrible. These are all like tactics to put your focus and energy into those stuff rather than like look at yourself like, okay, like what's happening inside of me and how can I navigate this whole damn thing? Right. And also like this like dragging away your attention. I don't know, like if we talked about it on the live events here or on Patreon, that you have all these public rituals basically that you're doing on live TV for sometimes. For example, you have the Super Bowl and they're performing all these lavish parades with symbolism and weird stuff. And like millions of people are watching it live. And why are they putting these stuff in front of you in the TV? Because if you're putting your attention on it, you're like feeding your energy into that and like making it stronger. And that's basically why they're always feeding fear to people through entertainment, through the news, because they want you to amplify that whole agenda and that whole paradigm of like bringing about the zombie apocalypse and alien invasion movies.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something else too, preparing you ahead of time to feel fear or a reason to avoid when something beautiful occurs. Like you said, with the alien invasion movies, like even the best documentaries, there's this fear base in the show where it's like, but like, and like trying to make there be some kind of reason to be afraid. And honestly, out of everybody in this universe, I'm sure that they're more afraid of us than anybody else. We're violent, immature, raw, emotional, irrational
Destructive,
beings that,
self-destructive.
yeah, and we don't think before we act. And like, I mean, lots of sorries afterwards doesn't do any good after you like nuke somebody's ship full of a whole population, right? Like, and all of that has to do with the fact that this whole, that's what's really interesting, is that all the information that we needed has always been out there. And there's some kind of, I can't remember where I heard it, but there's some type of rule or law of the universe where they need to kind of give you the information and then you decide how you take it. And then they can put their own spin on it and make it be a disharmonious, unpleasant reason to be afraid experience. And so the thing is just like you were saying, we all have our own, just we have the ability to discern that, so that's why most of us, like starseeds, light family, light warrior people, we have always had that. Most of us are geeks. Most of us enjoy our Star Trek, things like that. And there's a reason for that, and also the as we engaged in those programming, we didn't get programmed by them. We were able to see something more about it, and like, that's just, we are a resilient being, that beings that are here to do that. And so the point of bringing that up is to remind everybody, like, that discernment is there for a reason. That is your due north. You always have a due north within you, and it's correct, and as you peel away all this other stuff that maybe we've picked up along the way in this lifetime, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. The numbers. As we peel those things away, though, then we get to start to see that powerhouse that we are, and that truth that we have within us, that these things are beautiful. To find my center, all I have to do is have a couple of minutes of meditation. Like, that's it. Like, I don't have to do a lot of crazy stuff. Like, I do end up wanting to. I really enjoy high frequency music. I really enjoy, being in the sun, dancing, creating. All of us somehow, for whatever reason, have some type of artistic outlet ability, whether it be writing, whether it be art, drawing, sculpting, creating music in some way. There's, all of us have some type of, and that's our way of channeling and connecting. And for me, when I'm engaging in those types of things, is that I'm finding my center, and from that spot, from that place, then I can move forward, and then I can use my discernment a little bit more clearly. It's not clouded by all the other crap. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, like I think it was also in Star Wars, like like Master Yoda was teaching Luke like how to discern, or how to like tell the difference between the dark side and the light side. And I
Right.
think like said something like, if your mind is clear, then you will know. Like, there is
Yeah.
like no formula for it, but you will recognize it.
Yeah.
Like, is this action going to lead me down on that path or that path, basically?
Right.
But yeah, like if you're drawn out of your center and you're like agitated and running around,
Right.
and or you're in fear mode, then you won't have that discernment. You won't have that. Yeah, like just as you said, I think last week, that we're like lie detectors. So
Yeah.
that won't really function, because you're like dragged out of that vibrational state in which it can function.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're always like trying to put you in fear and running around and being agitated, because you can't really think clearly. You just react in that state. And you also can't really use your manifestational gifts as you would want them to. Like, you
Yeah.
can't bring about, I don't know, like harmonious energies if you're in a state of fear or shock. Like you're like blocked basically in that state of being. You're frozen.
And in that place of fear, you're in a place, and it's all an illusion. It's all not real, like, and when we can pull ourselves away from that, then it just, I don't know, it's like you just then know what to do, and you feel yourself, your true self, and that goes back to the use of meditation and how important that is, like we've talked about that endlessly, but I just got to say it again, all you need is 5 minutes a day. More is better. But 5 minutes a day of just centering yourself, bringing in the source light through your crown chakra down to your heart chakra, and then also from Mother Gaia's, heart, their center, and up through to your heart center, and they meet, and it's like this double helix of infinity. It's beautiful. And like as you do that for only a few minutes, all of a sudden everything is clear again, and something that I've been noticing lately, people have been pointing it out to me. I feel like I'm shouting to talk right now. And I'm bringing that up because I have become such a soft spoken, mellow person. And that wasn't me for most of my life. Like I'm loud and like jumpy, and, it's not bad jumpy, but I've become just like at ease more and more lately. Like as March has marched forth, like there's been more and more light coming in, that it just feels like everything is in its balanced space. And I blame that on my constant utilization of meditation and allowing myself to participate, as well as the higher frequency of light that's coming through, and knowing there's no reason to be afraid, and it's irritating, but it's almost funny too, to when I do see some of these news things. I'm like, really, like, and it's obvious, but it's also very annoying because I know it's going to affect a lot of people, because they'll believe it. And that's just so sad. Just stop, dude, like go sit in the corner and figure out yourself, don't be mean to everybody.
Yeah, like people were like talking while we were discussing this about loosh. Have you heard of that expression? Yeah, like Jasmina. Yes, loosh is the negative energy, is the energy what negative entities live off. It's like our life force energy. And yeah, like all these, and I'm going to sum up stuff here. Like all these wars and negative fear stuff are like basically for the reason that put us in a state of vibration in which we are emitting a specific energy that can be used to channel into specific rituals or to feed entities or stuff like that. Like I also heard something very interesting. Like I bet everyone heard of like Notre Dame burning down. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And you had all these huge bankers and these big companies like donating like millions of dollars like the next day to rebuild it. And I think like Simon Parks pointed it out, like all these structures that have like gargoyles on them are like centers that are used to channel this life force energy into the lower 4D, basically to feed these lower entities. And yeah, like that's also, I watched a lot of history documentaries, especially with the world wars and like the second. And yeah, like I bet they've done like a lot of things. Like people think that it's like mindless slaughter or just for the sake of violence, but they were also in a way like rituals to feed these beings, in my opinion. Like there was so much like senseless killing and stuff like it absolutely made no sense. But if you're looking at it from a perspective of a ritual, like what are you giving off and why are you doing those stuff, then it makes a lot more sense. Especially like in Ukraine, like in 1933, like there you have 33 again. They starved 7 million people.
Yeah.
And you had like the list of, I don't know, I think it was before the Second World War, like when Stalin was like installing himself in a seat of power, and he had his own, you had the state police, and like everyone was spying on everyone was afraid of their own neighbors because they were like tipped him off for something stupid. and they would end up in some kind of work camp or be executed. And you had the list, I think it was called like the list of Stalin or something. So like these state police guys were like bringing together names and like forming lists, like people to be executed or like sent to work camps, which is basically a slow execution because like going to be worked to death. And when you die from hunger or exhaustion, the next one comes in. And he was like, I think it was in the documentary that he didn't even look at the list or cared who was on it. He just always said like put more in it. Like, yeah. For why? Why? Why did he need that?
At the same time, like you were saying, like they're doing all of those things and causing this scene that we're having, like this wartime, and a reason that for everyone to accept a sacrifice. So a different kind of sacrifice too, like where it's just accepted that there's going to be shortages of things or things are going to be more expensive. However, like I don't feel like I'm speaking out of line at all by saying there is no shortages. It's just being held back. It's being withheld, and the prices are, it's called price gouging. They're charging more for certain things, creating that other level of fear. If it looks like we are short on something because it's costing us more, there's going to be more people panicking and thinking there really is something going down in that way. You know, like there is a lot. And then also the banks did that too. Like they made this big thing where you can't like withdraw certain amounts per day anymore, you know, but the money's still all there. Money's not real. Like it's paper that they print out, you know, it's not even, you know, like we left the gold standard forever ago. They make it here, you know, it's got nothing to do with real money, but they're putting restrictions on that. And that's giving just a little bit more fear to the population, you know, a little bit more control. And when you can see those things as they're coming through it, then you empower yourself again, and you're able to go back to that center again. They've been doing this, like you said in your examples, for so many, many years. And people are starting to finally notice it and realize it, you know, and to start to say no. And also to realize we really outnumber them a lot, you know, and that's got to be scary for them, you know.
I don't know if they feel such stuff, but yeah, who knows?
Nervous, I don't even know. Yeah, but
yeah, probably they're more like robot-ish, or I don't know, like probably they have like bred out these emotions from themselves, so they are much more efficient.
right.
Yeah, like, and also like I think I've seen some kind of documentary with like psychopaths, and they're like the main traits of psychopaths are that they can absolutely not relate to other people.
Yeah.
Like, so they're like completely absorbed in their own stuff and they just do that. And I think they kind of avoided or like bred out their emotional body from themselves to be, yeah, like you're detaching your own humanity from yourself and like putting yourself in a box from which you cannot really evolve or move further. Like if you like detach your emotional body, then you like I don't know how to say it, like you detach yourself from the spiritual realm, so you can't go upwards from that state, because in order to access your spiritual self in the higher realms, you need your emotional body. Like that's the key thing to the whole stuff. And that's why we have all these conditionings and stuff in society, like if you're emotional then you're weak. So yeah, like especially with men, like you cannot cry or you cannot be emotional because like that's what women do and that's a weakness.
When it's the most empowering thing you can do. It's so healing and so beautiful.
Yeah, not just crying, like just being honest with yourself and being at home with your emotional stuff.
Right.
And like I think I heard like some spiritual teacher talking about like people are like rejecting their emotional bodies and you're basically just half a man because you're like your more important stuff is like put somewhere aside and you're just this hollow being that has no clue what the hell is going on in their lives and why I feel so miserable and nothing works.
Right. You're just a robot at that point.
Yeah.
the other real interesting thing about the psychopaths is, so they have no empathy is the way that they word it. And the only time there is any kind of remorse if they get caught and it causes them to have a consequence. But that's the only time you'll see an actual authentic emotion come from them, is if they have remorse for getting caught and getting in trouble as a result, like, but that's it. They are unable to connect emotion to another individual or being, and someone mentioned earlier, and I would love to highlight it really quickly, about the importance of going into nature too. That's so recharging and so helpful. And as the season starts to warm up, at least in this side of the hemisphere, like, there's more and more opportunity to do that. Like, like, it may be right now it's 33 degrees. There's 2 more threes. But it's still there's sun out there. And so we're going out and just being in the sun and being involved in, like, if you can, to be barefoot, at least for a time, that and to walk in nature, in the soil, in the sand, in the dirt, in the grass, touch a bush, a tree, be in that and let your skin make contact for a time. That is so helpful. Not only is there an ionization process that happens where we expel the crap from our body, but the minerals that our body needs are absorbed through those big pores in the soles of our feet and our hands. Our feet are a more efficient conductor of that, but hands work too, just they take a little bit longer. And like how it just feels so much higher vibrational in nature too. Like, going out to nature, it's like my soul takes a sigh of relief. It's like, oh, so beautiful.
Yeah, like, I think like nature is like this neutral ground, is like ideal state of vibrationally. Like, that's how all other places should be too.
Yeah.
We also like build structures and things in a way that they're not very high vibrational, because like we don't respect ratios, forms, shapes, and we have all these, like we also have electromagnetic radiation, which is like very bad on a long term, especially in like big cities. Like, they're can be damaging to you. And also, like, if you live in a densely populated area, then as we have talked about, you have all the people like radiating their own stuff all over the place too.
Right.
But yeah, like, we will see how that works out. Like, for example, I think I've watched some kind of documentary like regarding like architecture and how things work better energetically. Like, for example, in nature, you don't really have like edges or corners.
Right.
Like, there, everything is like rounded and organic. So energy can flow much more easily. Like, also in your home, like, if you have like, energy gets stuck in the corners. So if you haven't cleansed your house, then especially like negative energies can like get stuck in the corners of the room. So you may want to check that out to clean it out if you can.
Even muggles noticed that. Like, I remember years ago going to someone's house and I staged their house and did a blessing and stuff. And I didn't let her know what I was doing. She was gone or something. I can't remember. But she said, "You cleaned the house. Like, it doesn't," and like, she kept looking for what was in the corners. Like, it felt like even though she wasn't fully there or aware of what was going on, to her, it felt like there were like piles of clothes in the corners or trash piled up over there, and like, she could sense it immediately. It was, whoa, this place is clean, and all I did was I saged it and I did some blessings and said goodbye and let them out, but it's obvious to everyone. It's really cool.
Yeah, like,
also, something else too is when you live in like a place like this. I'm in an apartment complex, and on my phone right now, I can pull up 10 Wi-Fi signals. Those are all coming down into this space that I'm in. Like, I got this and I got the other, my sleeping pod's right there. I don't want to get in front of the camera, but
I have mine. It looks like this.
Right. Okay, I'll get it. But there's like, these are really useful to have, and like mine's blue. I think yours used to be blue.
Yeah, I have it always in my pocket, so it lost its color completely.
And these really help. You can also, they tend to be the triangles. What are they called again? Organite? Is that right?
Organ pyramids, yeah. It's basically made of the same substance. It's like a black shungite with quartz crystal, brass, iron, and I think like the whole thing is like in an epoxy resin or
Right.
the plexiglass stuff. But they're like really good, like not just for electromagnetic radiation, but like transmuting crappy stuff in your field or in your house. They're like superb for that. Like I had problems at sleeping at my mother-in-law's house. Like I haven't slept there for like 4 years. I said like I can't sleep there. I'm not going to even try anymore.
Yeah.
And I took like 3 of these and my sleeping pod, and I had a good night's sleep.
Awesome. Awesome. That's a
Really
really
worked.
good example.
Yeah.
Experiment.
I don't know,
And
when we go somewhere, like put it on the Wi-Fi, especially if
yes,
we're going to like sleep there. I mean, I put it on the router.
right. And those pyramids are very affordable. You can get them on Etsy. You can get them all over the internet for relatively cheap. The sleeping pod, because how it's designed and they have to break the mold to do it, it's a little bit more expensive, but they're really nice and they're very useful to have around. And that helps me to be able to center myself too, because it almost sounds like there's a buzzing and it's like an interference that's happening when I don't have these near me, and like it diffuses that energy enough that I can like be in my space, go back to the center and that 0 point of oneness and be like, okay, this is where we are. And all of that distraction stuff and all of the other things that are trying to disempower me don't work anymore, and there are little tools like that. People use crystals and things. There's all kinds of, also salt baths, Epsom salt baths. I love being near to water. I think most of us do. And like bodies of water are very activating, but also, it's a very cleansing thing to use, to have salt baths. And that just gives you that recharging element. All these things I'm talking about are just ways to unlayer yourself, basically, so you can go back to your true self.
Yeah, exactly. Like recently, since the moon cycles, I started to, usually you should put this under your pillow.
Right.
That's why it's designed this way. But the recent weeks, I just kind of I always lay on my side and I try to like put it under my shirt to like keep it on my chest because like I had all this like agitation in the past few weeks especially during the moon cycles.
Right.
And it kind of helps with that, like especially if I experience like heart palpitation.
Yeah.
And like lay down a bit and I put this on my chest and it like goes away in like 2 minutes or so. It like evens out beautifully.
Also, some of the ascension symptom related headaches and like chakra headaches, chakra activation headaches, I've noticed that helps for like put the crook of your neck and kind of lay back on it. Like it really does actually, the headache is just gone.
Yeah, like it's good for pain relief too. Like you can lay down and put it on your forehead, or I had like my temples once, it hurt very bad, I was like laying on my side and I had it here for an hour or so.
Yeah.
And it felt like it kind of absorbed it or like neutralized that tension or that pressure that was in that area. They're like
Right.
pretty damn good. So, but if you have a very severe something, that I only think it does just a very mild effect.
Right. And the idea of this material is that it draws in negative energy and then it transmutes it into beautiful energy and sends it back out into something beautiful that was harmonious for you, and like, and something else that we can do is connect to each other like you're doing now. You're all like chatting in the chat box and commenting on this as you watch the replay too, probably, and like connecting to each other. And Guardian has a Patreon now where he's doing meetings also. Like those meetings are really cool. Like, and just getting to connect to each other and be in a space where other people understand it. Like after so many years of like kind of not really talking about what you're going through and maybe even feeling crazy about it, you get to be in this space where not only is there no judgment, but everyone else relates to you. And they're like, yeah, me too. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, like I think that was like the main theme for many of us. Like we felt like super isolated during our whole awakening, or maybe just in our whole lives. Like we were always like the black sheep of the herd or of the family.
The white
And you
sheep.
the white sheep, yeah. Like I not always, but mostly I wear black for some
Right.
reason.
I have noticed that.
Yeah, like I don't know, like for some reason, like I'm an artist and I love colors and I love to paint very bright and contrasty stuff, but I just it doesn't make any sense for me to like wear colorful stuff. Like I tried it, but it just feels very odd. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. It's more like feels like a uniform for some reason. It makes more sense to me like it's a uniform. Like I also said it like many times. Like I don't like to dress up for occasions and stuff like that. Like for me, like it would make a lot more sense to like have like one something that is like good for all occasions.
Right.
Like it's like very practical. It keeps you warm, it keeps you cool, and you can easily clean it.
Right.
But all the here on Earth we have all these variations of clothes, and you put match this with that, and
Right.
it breaks down, it doesn't work, it loses its color, and like it's very aggravating.
Right.
Like the ETs have that overall jumpsuit,
Yeah.
which is good for every occasion.
I think it's pretty common too. But like, I mean, you have the minimalist approach that I do, except I most of my life I've tended to wear tie-dyes and camo pants or shorts. Like that's and like they do not go together. They're not supposed to be together. And I don't care.
That's my
You
wife.
know, like
Who cares?
yeah. You know, I'll wear them until the t-shirt breaks down where the collar's almost breaking off. I was like, okay, you gotta retire that. But I don't care. But I mean, I'm not, and I think a lot of us are like that. Like we try to do the dress up thing sometimes, and it just the whole time you feel like you're a cat with tape stuck to your paw. You know what I mean? Like the whole time you're like, I just feel awkward and wrong, and I can't until I get it off. I'm not gonna be happy.
Yeah, like I also had the same stuff too. That I have like shirts that are like 15 years old. Like I wore them in high school, but I don't wear them when I go out to someplace. But they're great for like cleaning the house or gardening or something. So you're like still like reusing it to a certain extent,
Right, right. And then
especially
you can
here.
keep it for a rag later.
That's what I wanted to say to you, especially here in Eastern Europe, like we recycle everything. Like
Right.
we grew up in a society where we didn't have much, and like we used everything to its maximum effect.
Awesome.
You like recycled everything like 100 times until it was like unusable.
That's awesome though. I like that.
Yeah, but we're like progressing out of that, and yeah, like people are more accepting of this like super consumerist stuff. Like you buy a lot of junk that you don't use, and then you throw it away.
Right. Yeah, that concept of like, and then most electronics are designed to break down right
Yeah,
before
like
the
it's
warranty
super
also.
annoying. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have places like Sweden that are starting to have for quite a few years now are starting to bring back the tailors and the people who repair these things and like
Mhm.
and to encourage that those professions, those jobs kind of intentionally lost interest by making everything made out of plastic and also making those jobs be diminished. You don't get paid very much. And I love that. I hope that it becomes a trend throughout the world that, yeah, just reuse it, dude. There's no reason to throw it away. The landfills are full of the,
Junk, yeah.
yeah,
Clothes
stuff
and
that you could
stuff.
have fixed probably if it wasn't for that one plastic piece, if it was metal or whatever, you know.
Yeah, or you could like reuse it for something. For example, here yeah, like we do collect our garbage selectively, or how do you call that? Like plastics,
Recycling.
yeah, like for recycling. But we don't recycle it. We just collect it separately and throw everything at the same
Oh, it's funny.
dumpster. But on paper, we collect things separately for recycling purposes. We just don't have facilities that recycle stuff.
Yeah.
So since we moved out to our house, like we barely have garbage to like send it off for the garbage truck. like everything that comes out of the kitchen is like reused for like the animals eat it, or like it goes into the compost, or like everything that is like can burn or can be used for like making fire, then we make fire with it too.
Right.
The only thing that we throw out is like, I know, like glass stuff or cans that I don't really know what to do with them.
Right. There, unless you can be creative and you're able to weld, like the cans are hard to repurpose,
Mhm.
like, and I love, because I love the plants, I found many different ways to make planters. Like I found this really cool old TV and I made a planter out of it. I wanted to make a fish tank out of it, but I couldn't keep it watertight. So it ended up being a planter instead. But it's kind of fun to be able to reuse things, especially since they have so much history behind them.
Yeah.
I kind of took you away on a different topic, didn't
No, it's
I?
fine. Yeah, like I also think like we were going to move in that direction too, like be more self-aware and conscious of like what we're doing.
Yeah,
And yeah, like society was like pushing us in a different direction because like it's better for the big companies to constantly keep selling stuff
yeah,
to you.
right,
And if you like reuse your stuff or you fix it, then they're going to lose some income. So
right,
that's not good for business.
right.
But hopefully, like that kind of goes away from the mainstream too, gradually. I hope so. Like there were
Yeah,
like a lot of, yeah, like we also had this like tug of war between like two sides, basically like people who want to like fix the world and do things differently, and you had like the dark side that was like want to keep everything in that self-destructive
right,
mentality. And I've kind of noticed that like we're not really getting far ahead because like when like people actually get together and do something, then they like change some kind of legislation or do something that kind of like counteracts that.
yeah,
And like everything is like thrown back into the old stuff. But we're still pushing through nonetheless. And
right,
when all those like bad guys are going to be like done for, then basically so far we were like doing this damage control, like also like light worker community, we were like doing damage control, like constantly traumas and stuff is happening, and we we're like patching things together, healing stuff, clearing here and there. And
right,
now that like things are going to be cleared out, like hopefully like the guys that are like providing us with an abundance of fear and crap in our lives are going to be gone,
right.
and hopefully we will be able to actually like heal deeply everything in a more permanent way. I
Yeah,
hope so. But it's going to take a lot of time, I think. Like there are so many layers to the damage that has been caused to like everything here.
right.
Like it's probably going to take a few generations to like completely clean it out on all levels.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and we have been making progress, like if you can pull back far enough and look at a timeline of more like looking back to like the 1940s, which is quite a while ago, you can see there's been like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, but there's still that extra step that's been made forward, and we're slowly making progress, and everything has to be done slow. And that's the message I keep being given. To be patient. It needs to be this way for it to last. Not only that, but as we allow it to come in slowly, that provides the space for more souls to be ignited and awakened, and it has to be a gentle, slow process,
Yeah,
and
like otherwise it's shocking and you're doing more damage than good, basically.
exactly. And same for all these other things that you were talking about. If it's done quickly, it bounces back to the old way very quickly. Versus if it's done slowly, there's more time for people to kind of accept and change their habits and their behaviors in order to meet that new standard in a very slow way. It's a lasting effect. So it's hard not to be impatient sometimes, though, for me.
Yeah, like because like we kind of got it already like years ago, and we're like waiting for people to get it too and like
Right.
catch up.
Come on.
Okay. Yeah, do you want to share something in the closing?
Just I would love to say thank you to all of you. Like I've found this more and more where I'm just connecting to you and feeling such appreciation for all of what you're doing. What you're going through is so hard right now. It's taxing and difficult, and we're exhausted. Allow yourself to the things that you need, and to be gentle with yourself. If you need to take a nap, if you need that extra rest or whatever it is, allow yourself to do it. And thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you for being here on planet Earth and assisting the whole shift. And also thank you for connecting with us and all the other community members.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for being here, Higher Vibrations, sharing your light and wisdom. Thank you. And much love to everyone, and have a beautiful weekend.